Welcome everybody to the first ever West Coast Champ weekly roundtable episode. I am here again with Gordon as always, and today we have a guest to kick off our roundtable special. And Gordon, how you feeling today?
I'm ready to have someone else join us for the first time ever on this show. We're excited to have a guest to argue with sports about. So let's get into our roundtable.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to get a new take and have someone tell us that we're wrong instead of us telling everybody else they're wrong. Let's just get right into it with the two of us. Corona, we're still kind of waiting around to see what's going to happen. What do you think is going to happen here in the sports world the next week?
You know, the big issue is not necessarily holding the actual sporting events within the stadiums. It's easy to get a small group of people from each side in there, including the players, trainers, coaches, and whatnot. I think the main issue is getting the sports fans in there all combined in one building. 60,000 people in one building, one arena is the real issue. All those concessions and all those tickets, all that money and revenue that is going to be spent by the person actually at the event is going to be lost. You don't have your TV and broadcast deals necessarily being lost because you can still hold that.
Right. That's the big thing. They still make money off those deals.
Yeah, I think that's that's a main player in this, but I think one of the big issues is getting people to actually fill the seats.
And see, I think even if we do have a true NFL season and we bring all the other sports back and the MLB does start up, I don't know if we're going to have fans. And selfishly, I hope that happens. I want to see sports again, whether there's fans there or not. And I understand that the athletes are going to be frustrated, but you're getting paid a lot of money, bud. So let's get out there and entertain whether there's fans or not. I think the one thing that people really don't actually think about also is that there's been a lot of backlash, especially from the baseball players leaving their families, having to stay in these compounds and being quarantined together, only seeing each other. And they really don't want to leave and go there. So I think that that's also another huge issue, that they don't want to leave their families. They don't want to be confined. They think that it's kind of a mess and that it's really not worth it. And we are hearing these from big name players, guys like Mike Trout, Clayton Kershaw, and even in the other sports, it's not something these guys want to do.
No, especially leaving your family at this time, kind of dire situations. You don't want to go there, especially for work, when it's not even your true work, when you're just showing up to play in front of an empty stadium. I've heard a lot of talk about, especially baseball, joining together into one area, whether it be Las Vegas or Arizona, where there's a bunch of fields where they can come together and play a season with no fans and all kind of keep it all congregated within one area. But I just do not see that really happening, just kind of due to the issues that you said. They don't want to be away from their families in this tough time.
Yeah,
to play a sport that's not even all the way there.
The two big places would either be Florida or Arizona to use the spring training complexes, but I don't think that they would allow families, which I think is the big thing in this current pandemic. And so it remains to be seen. Some certain sports like the NFL are planned to be played. So we will see what happens here in the next month or two in regards to their camps and who is allowed to show up to camp, who's not allowed to show up to camp, and who just sits out because they say, no, I'm not going to. I think that's also another issue. People may just not come. Like, players may just say no. It's a very interesting situation that I think us sports fans can't really grasp fully because we're not totally involved. We're just selfishly wanting to see sports, which I'm one of them. I totally would love to see sports, but at the same time, we have to understand what's going on around us. So I think everything you said is certainly valid as well.
Yeah, you definitely want to keep everybody safe. Obviously, like you said, selfishly, we don't want to be bored, but at the end of the day, that can't be the reason for them to go out there and possibly expose themselves and their families,
Exactly.
to something dangerous because we're bored. But it's a huge money issue at the end of the day. So where do you go from here? Where is the line? where it's too dangerous, where it's also too much money, kind of caught up in the same thing. So at this point, you just kind of got to wait a couple months.
It's a pendulum that you don't really know which way it's going to go. And I think us sports fans, we really got to cross your fingers, pray we get some sports here in the next month or two, and maybe we'll get some entertainment for us here at home. Joining us today is our first ever guest, my buddy Hunter. How you feeling today?
Pretty good. Feeling like everyone else, I think, in this quarantine time. Eager to get outdoors, but thanks for having me and excited to talk some sports today with you guys.
Of course, and Hunter is a avid baseball, basketball, and football fan. Also plays some hockey. He's a junior hockey player. He plays for the Salmon Arm Silverbacks. So it's great to have an athlete on to get their perspective. So let's just get right into it. NFL. Supposedly we're going to have a season. Everything is on track to start camp and have games. Big moves being made. We saw Andy Dalton be signed. What do you guys think?
Dalton getting signed to the Cowboys, definitely some good backup insurance in case Dak either goes down or, who knows, holds out because of his contract. I think it's a great move by them having someone like that right behind Dak for every reason that you can just plug him in case Dak isn't good to go for whatever reason. You have all the weapons around him. He's going to be able to make some plays with not only CD, but Amari and Ezekiel back there as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I feel like, having Dak back there, not knowing the future of him and the team as a whole, he might hold out, and then they have a great backup in Andy Dalton coming in right away, having experience like he does, also has pretty good winning record playing for the Bengals and that whole organization as well. And I honestly think it might also be a power move by the Cowboys to show Prescott that, hey, if you don't want to play, we're going to be fine without you. So might also be a way for them to push him as well.
Definitely. I don't even think people realize that this is their way of saying, Dak, let's go. It's either now or never. You guys think he sits or you think he signs?
I think he plays. I don't know what the final resolution of it. I think he plays this season with them. But going forward, I wouldn't be surprised if they move in another direction, whether it be keeping with Dalton just for a year or something while they figure out something in the draft, or try to poach someone big like Aaron Rodgers away from the Packers. Who knows? They have a lot of different options that they can go right now.
Do either of you know who they franchise tagged? It was a defensive player, right?
I think Lawrence.
I think you're right.
They did do Lawrence. So see, the problem in this scenario is they can't even franchise tag him. So it's essentially you got to pay him or that's it.
I also think nowadays there's so many good quarterbacks that if the guy you have doesn't, want the same money as you want to give him, I think there's so many options now with the draft and now all these quarterbacks, wanting to play for a certain team. I think they have a lot of options and outlets that if Prescott doesn't, fit what they want, they can find someone else. I also think he's a little bit overrated, and I think he's asking for a little bit too much for his, for his talent.
So see, that's interesting because I was just going to ask. So do you think that Andy Dalton can come in and run in the Cowboys offense just as well as Dak?
Maybe not necessarily as well because his skill set's a little bit differently. I think Dak's a little bit more mobile, but I think that he would definitely be able to find success. Maybe not more per se, but maybe a little bit less, if not the same. I think that he would actually be able to lead the team to the playoffs, given a full season with the Cowboys.
Do you think that Dalton could now sit in as like a Alex Smith on the Chiefs, where you have those weapons around you and all you got to do is be a game manager? Because realistically, like Dak's a solid quarterback, but he's just a game manager who can extend plays.
But at the end of the day, they're not looking to be a game manager, Alex Smith type of player. They need somebody to take them to the Super Bowl. That's all that Jerry cares about.
Right, but like think about it. They paid a guy like Tony Romo, who is a game manager. They've had game manager after game manager after game manager. So it's like,
you can't find a Mahomes just on the sidewalk. You have to.
Right, and I agree, but it's like, and with a new coach. So, I mean, what do we think that happens? I mean, that could be a totally different game. Maybe it could be Mike McCarthy being like, Andy Dalton could be my guy.
It's true.
I also think that with the weapons that Prescott has, they've really underperformed. He's had arguably the best running back in the league with Elliott. He's had Cooper, who's a top 10 receiver in the league, and to not make the playoffs last year with Eagles being hurt and the Redskins and Giants being the way they played, having it be the worst division in football and having all the talent around you, with also having one of the best offensive lines as well. I feel like that's also a sign that, maybe they need to move in a new direction. And like you said, there's going to be a new offense next year with Mike McCarthy running it. And I think, a lot of things are going to unfold for them next year.
You think they trade Dak? You think anybody's willing to take him if they give him big money? You
Oh
think
my
if they
Lord,
go, fine, here's your $20 million, but we're going to trade you?
No, they're not gonna. They're not gonna trade him because nobody's gonna want to pay the price that he's gonna have to get. Remember, who was it? Jadeveon? Didn't he go for like a 1 and a 2 or something like that? Imagine a quarterback in his prime. Like that's gonna be like 3 firsts. That's where you're gonna have to pay to get him.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And right now, there's a lot of quarterback situations that aren't. There's a lot of quarterback situations that already filled. Like I don't know. Besides New England,
who a team that wouldn't even take a shot at Dak.
Yeah, so, I'm not even sure who he would go to, but I still think that they're not settled on him for sure.
Right. And so something that Hunter and I were talking about yesterday that's interesting, speaking of quarterbacks, is the Bears finally dropped the hammer and said, Mitch, we're not bringing you back. And I mean, it's after making a Nick Foles move. So do we think that means, all right, we're ready, we're going to move forward with Nick Foles, who's got this big contract? Or do we think that means Trubisky's gone, we're going to deal with Foles and maybe go try and find another quarterback in the draft?
I think there's a couple of things. I think one, it's probably a way to, put a little more pressure on Trubisky, say like, hey, we kind of need you to develop. So by declining that 5th-year option, I think that sort of gives him the motive that, hey, they might move on from me. So that might put some pressure on him. But I also think that, if he doesn't play well, they're obviously going to move on to Foles and, let Trubisky walk. But the thing with Trubisky, I don't think he's ever had the greatest offense. I don't think he's ever had weapons surrounding him. But the thing, he does have he's always had a great defense. I think Bears defense has been really good. But as far as running backs and receivers, he hasn't an offensive line. He's never had like the top tier guys. But I do think that it is a sign that they may be moving on to Foles or a future quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean he's not in the easiest division, so I will give him that. But he's kind of a guy that, I mean, when he went out in college, you're starting to see more nowadays, especially in this last draft. Jordan Love is your prime example. You're seeing guys who are on teams that don't really perform as well or are in the bottom half of a conference, and there's upside with them, but I don't think that they're really NFL caliber talent. And I think Trubisky is kind of sitting there in that middle zone, like, is he going to be a starter or are we going to turn him into a backup now? He really hasn't proved himself.
And what's crazy about that is the price that they paid in 2017 to move up to get him. They remember.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. I mean, I understand you want your guy, and if you believe in him, go get it. But he was really not that talented in college. I'll come out and say it. He really wasn't. He played in the ACC that was completely dominated by Clemson. No other team was really that great. I mean, Louisville had Lamar, but Lamar was not Lamar yet.
Yeah, and that was the year where Deshaun Watson was still at the board. Everybody thought that they were moving up to get him, but to move up to get Trubisky and to give him no support besides a really good defense, which is sometimes a sufficient enough support to have success for a young quarterback, but not in this instance. They did not seem to help him out, and it didn't really seem – and now it seems that the only thing that they're really trying to do is just play out his rookie contract and have a very good backup in Nick Foles to be there when he most likely fails.
I personally think Nick Foles starts week 1.
I think he starts no matter what after week 3.
I also think that was the year that Mahomes was in the draft as well. He got drafted 10th overall by the Chiefs.
He was.
Yeah,
so they royally screwed up.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's easy for us to sit here and be like, look, Deshaun or Mahomes would have stepped in there and become a star because they're stars in the league, but those other two teams had better players. So to Trubisky's aid. His offense, like Hunter said, was not the best, but I think he's vastly outperformed. And yeah, so it's an interesting time here in the QB carousel of the NFL. And also now, to even make their lives harder, we're adding another regular season game. Are you guys for or against that?
I am against it, kind of for different reasons. I know that a lot of people cite player safety and stuff like that, and greed by the owners. I do it for historical records. Like now, every single season record is not going to be. You're not going to be able to compare it anymore to the modern game. There's going to be pre-2020 records and post-2020 records. All the team records. There's no more 8-8. There's 8-9 and 9-8 as the 500 records. It just looks weird. It does not look equal on paper. I don't like it for historical reasons, but you know what? If they make more money and there's more football, then I guess I'll be in support of it. So.
Yeah, for me, I never really thought of it from that standpoint, but obviously being a fan, not a player, it's obviously, I feel like a good thing. I only get to watch football, like 3 times a week, being Sunday, Monday, Thursday. They have one more game. I feel like it's going to be good for the fans and money and all of that. But yeah, I never thought of it from a historical standpoint, but being a fan, I feel like it's definitely going to be better for people to watch more football and all that.
And I mean, by adding this game, we're taking away preseason games that in reality should have just been taken away anyways. I mean,
no one cares about those.
There was really no point to those. But now also with that added 17th game, we're adding teams to the playoffs. And so what Gordon said is now also coming into effect the records. And I'm personally not for not helping crappy teams get into the playoffs. Like there was a point in one time where we had 1 or 2 teams in the playoffs with sub 500 records. And I think now you're starting to give teams more chances to get into the playoffs when it's like, why just win? Like stop tanking and just win.
Get good.
Yeah, get good. Like be better. Like we're rewarding those like borderline teams, and yes, that's fine, but teams are still gonna tank. So now you're gonna create what happens in the NBA. You're gonna have half the league trying and half the league not trying. So now what does that do to your league? There's no disparity.
Yeah, there's no middling ground where you kind of have some teams that are on the fringe ready to come up or go down. It's kind of like you're either going to want to be going for those top 5 picks, or you're going to be wanting to go for that number 1 spot in the playoffs for the only home field advantage and the only bye, with that playoff.
Exactly. And Hunter will know this firsthand because he's a Chargers fan. Last year was a rough year. We all know that. They had injuries. They're trying to figure out what to do with Rivers. They had the 6th pick. In no way, shape, or form should the Chargers have had the 6th pick with how good of a team they are. But now they're going to go from a team that wasn't going to make the playoffs and struggled to an AFC contender and can really do some damage.
Well, I think another point is the NFL probably wants, the more fan bases that can get a playoff spot, the more football is going to grow as well. So, teams that normally don't make the playoffs are going to maybe start making the playoffs. Obviously, that's not good for historical reasons and all of that, trying and not trying. But I think from an NFL as a business, they want more teams to make the playoffs so that more fan bases can start rooting for their teams. So like a Chargers fan, we can start rooting for a playoff team again.
And 100%, but in all of these leagues that we watch and we talk about and we love, 95% of it is a business. But where do we draw that line of like business and like what the game is? Like I understand you want to make money. The NFL has no issue making money. I don't care what they say. We all know that they make enough money. They don't need to make more money. You raise salary caps every year, and we see that players who don't deserve money get money. We know that. But why are we trying to fix something that was really never broken? Having less teams should, in theory, cause more competition.
Having less games, you mean?
No, having less teams in the playoffs should cause more competition to try and get in.
Oh, yes. I definitely agree with that.
That's fine. Keep 17 games. I don't care. You know what? Add the extra game if you want to. But that then gives those teams that are the bubble teams an extra game to get in. Now you don't have to give them those playoff spots.
But now it's just like what you said, 95% business, and you have those extra games. If you can get 5% extra games, that's 5% extra revenue. And we all know that that's the only thing that really matters to the NFL.
I think another thing is that a lot of leagues are trying to start modeling after the NBA. The NBA is constantly making changes and doing different things within the schedule and season. So I think, and obviously, I think they're probably the number one sport right now in America. So I feel like a lot of other leagues now are trying to, mirror that and start trying to do different things and make it more exciting and start bringing in more revenue, more people, more fan bases and all that.
NBA is definitely the most progressive, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, going from stern to silver was almost like nothing had changed. They've done a great job. I think we saw with the All-Star game from last year, something that was a changing thing. And it's a great segue into going into our next topic of, do we think the NBA is coming back this year?
Right now, man, it would be hard to resume the season. I don't see how they can keep up the momentum they already had. All momentum's lost. Where are they playing? Who are they playing in front of? If they're playing, you can't start the season after half a year off. At half a year off, that's a new season. So they have very limited amount of time to reopen or resume the season.
I feel like out of all the leagues, the NBA probably has the best chance to resume just because they're, like you said, the most progressive. They talked about playing on cruise ships, certain states and whatnot. But I feel like with all these, avenues they're trying to pursue and not having a final answer yet, probably they're just trying to buy time. But I think at the end of the day, like Gordon said, they probably won't resume. I feel like a lot of these avenues they're pursuing are just dead ends, to be honest.
And I think one aspect that I don't think people are really thinking about, besides the fact of the safety of the players and what's going on in the world right now, is that hypothetically, if this restarts, number one, do you give them preseason, regular season games? Do you just start with the playoffs? And also, does this now change the start date of next year? Because if we start now, technically the NBA Finals would start in a month. So if you're going to run through a whole playoffs, odds are it's May. Maybe we would end the end of July, depending on how the series would be. Maybe we would end in August, and the season's supposed to start again in October. Is the excuse then, well, you just had 3 months off, so technically you're going to have a full off season, 3 months there, 3 months there? Or now does next year's season get pushed back, which then affects everything? I think that the playoff format would probably have to change. And the other big thing, and I know Gordon and I talked about this, and he can touch on this more, is the chemistry of teams playing together. I mean, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks. I mean, these teams that were leading the NBA were on fire. And I think that in a scenario like this, you would then potentially have the team that's really not the NBA's best team win the championship because the Lakers came out cold because they've been sitting for 3 months. Like, that's not fair. Like, we all know really what team should be in the Eastern Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, it definitely creates an opportunity for those lower seeded teams to kind of wrestle some momentum away, especially from, if a LeBron-led Lakers is going into the season on a 20 out of 22 game win streak. Like, whoever's the 8th seed, 7th seed, they should feel a little bit more confident if we do resume in this kind of format, because they know coming into the series that everybody's kind of on the same level. They just happen to be playing at their stadium, not necessarily – they might have a better team, but they're not necessarily the hotter team. Everybody's neutral. Nobody's hot. Nobody's cold. Everybody just coming into play some basketball.
And what's kind of crazy, and both the Lakers and the Clippers and the Bucks and all these top-tier teams benefit from, is we essentially just had load management for 4 months. LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George, Giannis, AD, all these guys just had 3 months to just relax their bodies.
Yeah, I think that could definitely be a blessing or a curse. However, players pursue that. For example, I thought Giannis said he didn't have a hoop at his house, so I feel
Yeah,
like
I saw that.
So some players obviously probably have an advantage over others, but at the end of the day, most guys are probably coming back rusty. Like no matter how hard you train, it's just different from practicing at home than it is in an arena. But like you said, the 8 seed teams are going to have pretty much a clean slate with the rest of the teams because chemistry is all lost. Not all lost, but chemistry is obviously deteriorated as well as momentum and everything that goes into that.
Can I just say real quick how irresponsible I think that is by Giannis? Like, you're being paid millions of dollars and you can't even find a basketball. Can't he go to Walmart and buy one of those like $80 driveway hoops? Like, I don't understand.
I was just talking about it the other day. Honestly, use Amazon, whatever. Like, get it delivered to your house. You make millions of dollars. I'm sure someone will find a way when they see your name to get you a basketball hoop. Also, how did you not have a hoop built into your house when you built it? That's what you do.
Yeah, I don't know what are these guys doing?
I honestly didn't even think about that until just now. So it's a comical but very serious situation that some of these players have. And so with that being said, we want to thank Hunter for joining us today. We had a lot of fun. We enjoyed your takes.
Thanks for having me.
He will definitely be back on the channel here in the future. And we will see you next week with our next episode of the Roundtable. Have a good one, everybody.